All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. I'm Ashley Limbers, the marketing manager here at Encompass Solutions, and I'm happy to be your moderator for today's session. For those of you who are new to Encompass Solutions, I'll give you a quick introduction. We are a North Carolina-based ERP consulting and implementation firm with over 25 years in business, and we have a global team of just over 40 staff members. And we focus exclusively on serving the manufacturing and distribution industries, delivering solutions that help organizations streamline their operations, overcome challenges, and help drive growth. And as a premier partner of Epicor, we have 2 decades of experience delivering tailored ERP systems. What truly sets Encompass apart is our partner first mindset. We don't just implement software, we work closely with clients to ensure their ERP solutions are tailored, optimized, and aligned with their business goals. Today's session will focus on Epicor Cloud Strategy, presented by Robert Edson. And before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and we'll send a copy to all registrants afterwards. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box on your Zoom control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can during the live Q&A at the end. And lastly, we'd appreciate it if you could take a minute to fill out the quick survey after today's session. It helps us keep improving these events for you. So now let's turn things over to our presenter. Please join me and welcome Robert Edson. Robert has 17 years in software sales, and many of those years selling cloud solutions, and 14 of those years has been with Epicor. His role has included customer account manager and new sales, giving him experience on both sides of the table. Robert's experience in many areas of manufacturing include medical devices, electronics, capital equipment, aerospace and defense, plastics, metal fabrication, and more. And we're excited to have him here with us today. So without further ado, let's get started. Robert, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Ashley, for the introduction, and thanks everybody for joining this morning. Like Ashley said, we're going to talk and walk through a little bit about Epicor Kinetic in the cloud. First, I'd like to start with just kind of a basic understanding of what is Epicor Kinetic in the cloud. For the folks that are on the line or listening to the recording, Epicor Cloud is not a new piece of software. Actually, it's taken all of the great functionality that we've seen from Epicor over the years. It's just now deployed in Microsoft Azure, and it's accessed via the web or a web browser. I do mention this because some companies do have differences between their on-prem and cloud solutions, and I will say that that is not true with Epicor. And as you can see here, Epicor Cloud offers the full spectrum, quote to cash, procure to pay, and all the functionality that you're seeing here on the pinwheel. In fact, you're not giving up any functionality when you move to Epicor's cloud. I know there are some scenarios for other organizations where that may be true, but the fact is you can actually be gaining some functionality when you look at Epicor's solutions in the cloud. And I'll be spending a little bit of time on a later slide talking about what that functionality exactly is. A little bit more on the basics around cloud and kind of how it's deployed. I will start by saying that not all cloud solutions are created equally. There are some major differences on how they can be deployed and how that might affect you from a cost standpoint, performance standpoint. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time, which is some basics in the industry on deployment options. On top of the Microsoft Azure infrastructure is where we deploy Epicor applications. There are several methods you may or may not be familiar with on how they're deployed. We refer to those as single tenant, public cloud, and multi-tenant. The top one that you're looking at here in this graphic is single tenant. This is where everything is isolated. So each customer has their own database. They have their own hardware, within a data center somewhere that a provider manages. And the benefit of this particular method is that you have a complete segregation of all your resources. But the downside is that this option by far is the most expensive. Um, on the bottom of the graphic here, we have multi-tenancy, which is on the other end of the spectrum from single tenancy. And this is where a company provides the service and the infrastructure layer. And those are shared actually across multiple companies, as is the application itself and the database. So it's a true contrast, right, to a single tenant environment. Some of the benefits of a multi-tenant solution is that that cost is distributed across multiple different companies. So your point of entry is much lower, right, than what single tenant would look like. But certainly the downside for this is that configurability and reliability can be greatly impacted under a multi-tenant solution. So for this reason, in the middle graphic there, Epicor took the approach of what's called dedicated tenancy. So what this offers is it leverages a shared infrastructure. It is shared across multiple different companies, which gives you the benefit of what we see in the multi-tenant solution, where the cost or the entry point is much lower than what we see in single tenant. But with dedicated tenancy, each customer gets their own instance and their own database. So there's zero impact from what one customer may be doing in the environment to the other. So again, you get the best of kind of both worlds. You get that lower entry point from a cost standpoint, then you also get your own version of the product and your own database. I want to talk a little bit about how Epicor deploys. I mean, as we know, Kinetic in the cloud runs on Microsoft Azure. We leverage Microsoft robust redundancy, their replication strategy, and their recovery strategy so you can focus on growing your business using their secure and reliable ERP and not data backups or business continuity. Kinetic and Azure can support customers throughout the world with data centers in many countries. So as you're seeing here, today we have several options from data centers throughout the United States. When you move to Kinetic in the cloud, data center is determined based on your geographic or your physical location, with an obvious intention there to reduce any sort of latency that can occur with SaaS or cloud-based solutions. Epicor does provide a powerful tool that allows customers to view their cloud status. So you can go to status.epicor.com at any time, and you can take a look at what the pings are, how are things looking for your particular environment, and that if it's online or offline or anything that might be impacting the environment. All right. Want to spend a little bit of time talking about what's included in Epicor's uh, cloud deliverables. So when you become an Epicor customer, so everything on the left side of the screen is essentially what's included for every customer at every price point. Doesn't matter if you're 5 users or 500 users. You're all going to start with some of the basics on the left-hand side. And again, I'll walk through a few of them. Obviously, you're going to get Kinetic that's deployed in Microsoft Azure. They do include MFA or multi-factor authentication. You do get technically three environments. You get an education environment, but you're going to get a production and a pilot environment, right? And that pilot environment is basically your sandbox, right, where you get to play around, test data before it refreshes into your production environment. Certainly comes with disaster recovery in those regions, daily backups. Those are retained for 30 days. They do commit to a 99.7 uptime on their service level agreements. And again, there's that very small delta in there of 0.3, and that is truly due to planned downtime. And they run some analytics on when they see the least amount of activity on servers, and they will take the environment down on occasion to do upgrades, to do updates, and obviously that enhances the product and your investment. Um, So again, also REST APIs are the back end. So if you're looking to connect Kinetic to other solutions, there's several options to accommodate that, but very popular option is to use REST APIs. On the right-hand side, we'll spend a little bit more time on some later slides, but I just want folks to be aware that there are several things we can look to add on to an environment, and this will come through obviously conversations with your sales folks or scoping conversations to determine exactly what your needs are. And some of these things may become applicable for you in your environments, depending on what you're trying to accomplish when you move to Epicor in the cloud. All right. One of the major benefits of being in the cloud is to take advantage of somebody else, right, managing your upgrades and your updates. That is the service element to being a cloud customer. Um, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some recent changes. Basically, prior to a couple months ago, Epicor had a cadence where we would see two kind of what I would call major releases that are occurring in a given year. So basically, every 6 months or so, we'll see kind of a large or a major update hitting the system. Um, they are shifting gears and moving to a little bit different approach. And there's a few reasons why we're doing this, but what it's called is CI/CD. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. So again, Kinetic is moving from those predictable, large, semi-annual release events to a more continuous deliverable model. So these are going to be smaller chunks of updates that are delivered on a more regular cadence. These updates are delivered more frequently. The releases are much smaller and they're much more manageable for the customers than these larger, 6 month releases. And the changes are introduced over time instead of bundling everything into a very large upgrade event. So why is Epicor making the change? We think this helps customers adopt new capabilities with less disruption. Again, kind of more releases, less content in every release, allowing you guys to take advantage of the latest and greatest. It also helps improve predictability for release planning and testing. Again, these smaller chunks should be easier for customers to test and support a more stable and responsive kinetic experience. Um, Jumping quickly to what customers can expect with CI/CD. So again, the release cadence is very different, right? When you're operating on two major upgrades every year, right? The cadence is going to look a little bit different from a resource standpoint when we're looking at things potentially on a monthly standpoint. There'll be monthly resources, quarterly resources, and yearly resources available to the customer base. Those monthly resources, you're going to receive fresh release communications through kind of some feature spotlight videos, newsletter updates. They're going to be producing what's called a what's new content. Quarterly resources, you'll see again newsletters, things on that are released on Epic Web or EpicNet. And then additional web content as well. And then yearly, there'll be kind of some what's new, what's next, kind of larger webinars that we'll be seeing for some of those larger releases there. So I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about security. As Ashley mentioned, I've been involved in selling Epicor Kinetic or Epicor's versions of ERP in the cloud for many, many years. And I will say that security is always one of those conversations that people want to have. So Epicor does operate on cloud security best practices. And when we're taking a look at this slide in particular, I kind of want to chunk this up into these three buckets here that are kind of color coded on the top. So first, from an infrastructure and from an operational standpoint, so within the regions, they do have Azure DDoS protection. And for those that are not familiar with what that means, um, basically these are attacks that are aimed to exhaust an application's resource. So it makes it unavailable to legitimate users. It just basically overloads the system. So Epicor has protections in place to constantly be monitoring for that type of activity, different traffic patterns. Um, and then once an attack is detected, or if it is detected, it is instantly and automatically mitigated. They also have an IT service management system. So on their end, like a lot of us or a lot of you as customers, right, you might have ticketing systems. But again, they're monitoring the required change and patch management, any incidents, problems, task management that's coming out of that. Again, products and hosts are protected with firewalls, host-based instruction protection systems, and certainly anti-malware. Um, For remote access and validation, they do use different access controls with least privilege access and MFA. They do an abundance of penetration tests, again, to make sure that from an access standpoint, there's no vulnerability there. They do restrict access in some situations. If you're ITAR or in Epicor's GovCloud, that would come into compliance here. So again, only U.S. citizens would be accessing their particular environment. And then certainly from an auditing standpoint, SOC 1 Type 2 and SOC 2 Type 2, and also ISO 27001 is something that they are accredited by. From an application standpoint, all the activity that's going to Kinetic is certainly encrypted. And then again, I talked earlier a little bit about using some of the connectivity or connecting Kinetic potentially to an external application. That is all done through RESTful APIs. So looking at for folks that are on-prem today, I always find this slide intriguing because until you really boil it down and take a look at where some of the value comes in a cloud deployed system, if we're looking at this graphic, the dark blue indicates all of the things that Epicor manages once you leave your on-prem environment and move to the cloud, right? On the right-hand side, under the hosted or the on-prem box, those are all tasks or activities that the customer has to manage, right? So a major value driver for people moving to the cloud is certainly to reduce that IT burden, right? And really put that on Epicor's shoulders. So again, that burden does shift to Epicor. And again, I would say this is a major value driver for companies that are looking to move to the cloud. We'll talk a little bit more about why people are moving to the cloud. I won't probably go through every one of these, but these are the 10 kind of major kind of pillars on why people are looking to move to the cloud. Um, One of them, and maybe the most obvious, is to avoid hardware costs and risk. Again, when you move to the cloud, you do eliminate any physical need for a server within your four walls. And again, back to that previous slide where that burden is now on Epicor's shoulders. One of the major advantages there is, like our laptops or anything else from a technology standpoint, every 3 to 5 years, we're looking at that asset, that server, thinking, hey, we probably need to spend a little bit more money on this or potentially replace that server. Right? That conversation certainly goes away when you move to the cloud. Another very popular one, so as Ashley mentioned, I'm the customer account manager here at Encompass. I talk frequently with our customers, and even over the years, there has been a trend where it is hard for some customers to stay current. So when they're on premise, right, that responsibility again lies on the shoulders of the customer themselves to stay current with different releases that are coming out. Well, in the cloud, you're always on the latest and greatest version. And again, that is on the shoulders of Epicor and a major value driver for businesses and to protect your investment is to always be on the latest and greatest version of what your vendor has to offer. Number three is industry regulations. So again, a lot of folks are moving to the cloud to help, manage certain regulatory compliance, SOC 2, CMMC, NIST, ITAR, just to name a few. Those are all areas where, again, could be a value driver on why you guys might be entertaining the cloud. Another very popular one, I would say more recently, in the past couple of years, is access to new technology, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about this in a later slide. But there are pieces of functionality that are only available today to our cloud customers. So again, another value driver to consider moving to the cloud. Data security. If you have a need to improve your cybersecurity, a lot of folks would agree that Microsoft Azure does security and technology very well. They have all of the security, they have the programs, they have the personnel in place to be equipped for anything that might be thrown at an environment. And oftentimes, for the folks that have a server within your four walls, I would be willing to bet that that security is far greater than what you could probably provide having a server within your four walls. Limited IT resources. Um, Again, a very popular one where you're maybe not able to have a full-blown IT department, taking that burden off of your shoulders and putting that on Epicor. Or sometimes folks retire and you're not looking to replace an IT individual. Again, maybe another reason to take a look at the cloud. Remote work. I think the biggest thing here is as long as you have an internet connection, you have access to Epicor Kinetic in the cloud, right? Truly browser agnostic, and you can access it anywhere. It certainly does help to facilitate expansion goals and certainly provides better business continuity. From an expansion standpoint, we do see that rolling out, multiple companies, multiple physical locations. A lot of that stuff is expedited in the cloud, just due to the lack of needing to start the project with a physical rollout of hardware, right? That takes setup well, first purchasing, there's certainly a gap from how quickly you can buy a server to actually receive a server. Setting up, configuring, doing an installation, that window of time is mostly eliminated. Where if you move to Epicor in the cloud, you have access to your environment probably within 7 business days or quicker. So again, seeing a lot of efficiency gains on that side of the fence as well, and helping companies really facilitate their expansion goals. All right. 95%. Don't just hear from us. I thought I would share some studies from some outside resources. The Epicor Industry Insights Report surveyed 1,350 technology decision makers and found 95% of businesses are overall comfortable with cloud-based solutions. In fact, 97% of enterprise businesses are mostly or all working in the cloud. That's a big number, right? I know small and mid-sized businesses, maybe the number isn't that high, but we're getting there. Obviously, with things that Epicor is doing to help our customers migrate to the cloud. But even think of it like from our personal lives. We see cloud every day, whether that's banking, social media, education, streaming services. We're connecting remotely to all sorts of things. We're certainly comfortable with that in our daily lives. So I always, propose the question to folks, why not your business ERP? Certainly take a look at what Epicor is doing in the market today. Another study talking about the power of cloud. This particular study was conducted by an analyst called Forrester. They interviewed four growing cloud customers, and they had multifaceted implementations of Epicor Kinetic. And what they uncovered was a long list of quantifiable benefits of moving to the cloud. I thought I would just share these quickly, with the audience. There was an overall net revenue improvement of 6.6% by year five due to strictly operational efficiencies. They found faster time to revenue with a kinetic deployment, reducing time by 20%. Um, that is significant when you think about a new implementation or a migration into a new Epicor environment. Reducing time by 20% means your time to value is that much faster, right? And your ROI is that much quicker. Gross margins increased by as much as 1.9% through improved cost efficiencies. Improved the net productivity of business users by 20% and the net productivity of the ERP support team by 40%. And that was by year three. And the cost savings from reducing or retiring legacy platforms totaled just shy of $1 million over 5 years. So again, I encourage you folks to obviously do your research and take a peek, but that is a published study from a non-biased analyst, again called Forrester. All right, we had talked a little bit about one of the reasons why folks might be looking at the cloud was to get access to new functionality. This is one of those areas, Epicor Prism, which is their version of AI. And what Prism is it's role aware, it's model agnostic, and it's an embedded AI agent directly within Epicor Kinetic. Um, so kind of gone are the days, right, of having to search for information manually or having to go through a tree structure to look for a given report or potentially, call the IT team, right, to have to get a summary of information. All of those things now can be verbally communicated through Epicor Prism. So again, you're talking to your ERP system, you're asking, how do I create a job in Epicor Kinetic? Well, there's an agent that recognizes that prompt. It executes the task through Epicor's alerting system, and it brings back the exact steps on how to create a job in Epicor Kinetic. Another example might be reports or some metric-driven data, right? Example, show me my sales for part number DCD 100 for the past 12 months. Again, that is a metric agent with an Epicor Prism that would, receive that prompt. Um, it automatically converts your question into a task, and then it pulls that data back for you in a presentable view. And like any, piece of AI that we're using in our daily lives, right? That first response isn't the last response. From there, you can certainly kind of massage that data even further. You can ask it to do different views, create different charts, things like that. But again, Epicor Prism is going to help your business just work faster. It's going to empower your workers. It's certainly going to produce better productivity across the board. It's a major, major efficiency gain. I want to talk again a little bit about some of the accolades, some of the things that we're seeing Epicor being talked about in the market space, and again referencing here the Magic Quadrant. This is a fairly popular report that gets published. But again, I do want to spend just a minute. Where you want to be is this upper right-hand corner in this leader box, but maybe not so high that you're away from the visionary side of it either. Because again, we want to make sure that we're always on the leading edge of what our customers may need. And I say may because it's kind of Epicor's job, right, to predict what our customers are going to need downstream, right, and that they're planning well ahead of that. But again, happy to report that Epicor is in the right spot here, and it's a great solution, and will continue to be a great solution here as we look to the future with their deployment of AI strategies. Spending a little bit of time here. on this slide, I want to take a look, and I'll be honest with you, I do spend a lot of time with my particular customers. I have folks that are still on premise and they're talking about, what does moving to the cloud look like, right? I will say when we do a kind of an ROI, or we do a cost comparison of all the things that they're paying for today that they have to have due to being an on-premise customer. I generally like to do that over like a 5 year span, right? To take a look at that total cost of ownership between cloud and on-prem. I'm finding almost every time that the cloud has a better total cost of ownership. So again, I encourage everybody that is considering moving to the cloud to do this exercise, right? And take a look at all the licensing, all the maintenance costs, all the support costs, all your upgrade expenses, your hardware costs, your support for that hardware, any resources internally and externally. Oftentimes, maybe leaning on a third party IT firm to help you manage that infrastructure. Again, those are all costs that can be largely eliminated when it comes to the ERP side of things if you're moving to Epicor in the cloud. Okay, shifting gears to some of the things that Epicor offers from a bundling standpoint. Um, First of all, we can sell these a la carte. Based on your needs, we can kind of pick and choose, obviously, what's the best mix for you. But they did kind of pre-bundle some things in these three buckets here. We have select, signature, and enterprise options. On the select on the far left side here, this is kind of your basic cloud service. This is for small or maybe even medium-sized businesses with potential add-ons available, right? So these are folks that are just kind of stepping in on the smaller side. Again, I don't want to undermine Select because it's still a fully functional, it's still a very robust ERP system from procure to quote to cash, procure to pay. It's just the initial bundling. We leave some stuff off intentionally for maybe phase two or phase three. Signature is probably the more common approach for most companies, but again, this is a pre-selected mix of some of the most popular uh, cloud service options, and we do bundle those at a reduced rate. And enterprise is kind of that premier level experience. And this is for a much, much larger kind of global organization that needs more around control, flexibility, and scalability. And I will break these down here a little bit further in a future slide. So again, with Select here, on the left-hand side. Again, it's all going to be in Microsoft Azure. The production, pilot, and education environments, you're still going to be getting that 99.7 SLA uptime. You do get disaster recovery, you get the backups, and you get an essential support plan there. In the signature, you get everything that I just mentioned in Select, but you're also going to get additional test environments in a premium pilot extension. So that allows you to basically function and pilot just like you're live, right? With all of the bells and whistles that you would have. The additional test environment allows you to basically move any sort of testing into a third environment. So when your pilot refreshes to live, you're not losing any of that data or any of the customizations or work that you've done. You do get read-only copies of your live database. So again, this is helpful if you're looking to have like a Power BI or some external reporting engine feed into the data. We can do that by offering the read-only database. Um, you also get what's called the Flex option. This gives you more control around the plan upgrade cadence. So you get upgrade cadence flexibility for an additional 90 days, which is a very, very, very popular option for customers. And last but certainly not least, on the other end of the spectrum is enterprise. And again, this is kind of your full-blown premium cloud experience. I did stress that it is kind of for global companies, multiple physical locations. I would say the floor to entry from a user standpoint is probably 150 users in Kinetic and more, right? There would need to be a pretty good use case on why you would be looking at enterprise. But again, it offers a tremendous amount of storage, a tremendous amount of databases as options, and more flexibility and control over the infrastructure side if needed. So again, I kind of just talked to that on comparing cloud, standard public cloud versus enterprise cloud. So I'll probably just kind of move through this slide here. All right. Um, if you're a customer listening to this or viewing this, you may be asking, how do I get to Epicor in the cloud if I'm on premise today? And we do that with a program called Ascend. And this is, again, the cloud migration program. This is intended for on-premise customers. And it's been built upon our proven methodology that certainly combines best practices. It includes some advanced tooling that's improved um, every 6 months. And it simplifies and automates the process for customers to move to Kinetic in the cloud. Between Epicor and Encompass, will help guide you through the complete cloud migration process. So this starts with scoping your project, all the way to onboarding your users. Um, so taking a look at the Extend program in a little bit more depth, it is a fixed free program. We'll start with kind of phase one here on the left-hand side of the graphic. But basically, this starts in the sales cycle, working with your customer account manager. But basically, there's a tool that's part of Ascend called the ERP Analyzer tool. And basically, you're running this at no cost, provided by Epicor. It combs through your database to take a look at all of your BPMs, all of your customizations, dashboards, things like that that might need some uplift. Um, Again, that's provided to customers at no cost, and it's a true clear assessment of your environment, so we can help scope out a project estimate. The second phase starts, once the customer signs the statement of work, and we kick off that cloud migration process. But it includes, package and transfer of your data, converting that data, converting any customizations. Again, major uplift just occurred with an Epicor Kinetic from the classic screens into the Kinetic experience, which is full web-based. And we're moving that into validation and ultimately deploying that that data right into your new cloud environment. Um, from a cloud migration kind of experience or the expertise, so between Epicor and Encompass, we've been doing this for many years, right? Working on getting Epicor on-prem customers to the cloud. I will say that 450 number is probably even outdated today. That every month that number is changing, and I would guess it's probably closer to 500 or 550 at this point. Um, we have over 3,000 plus customers that have run that analyzer tool that are truly starting to look at um, their move to the cloud. Some optional cloud services that I wanted to spend a little bit more time on. And again, these are optional. They would be an add-on, but they're available for anybody moving to Epicor's cloud. We talked a little bit about additional environments. We can add one, two, three, four, five, right? It doesn't matter how many. And I have customers that have many, depending on the circumstances for their particular needs. Again, the flex option will defer your upgrades for an additional 90 days. The read-only database, again, is a production copy, and that is for data access. So again, potential use case is a external reporting tool, Power BI, something like that that you're connecting to the environment via ODBC. And it is very near real time, but not exactly real time. And then we do offer one-time data downloads as well. So if there's ever a scenario where you just want to have a physical copy or a digital copy of your data, we can do that. Some other big options as well are for some of the industries that need a little bit more compliance. One of them is certainly around aerospace and defense or anybody that is working on government contracts. So we do have available to us the GovCloud. So again, that complies with all standard US ITAR regulations, and it is actually certainly in a different environment than our public SaaS customers. So they're in a different data center. Then we also have what's called the life sciences cloud. So these are folks that are in life sciences, manufacturing, medical device, things in that nature. But again, does help streamline regulatory compliance with comprehensive software validation plans. So again, major importance there for folks that are in the medical device space and having to validate their ERPs. Couple other offerings that you will get if you are an Epicor Cloud customer. And again, this is a tool that Epicor is continually updating, and they're giving the customer base more and more control. But this is called the Epicor Cloud Management Portal, or CMP for short. This gives you greater control, flexibility, and more efficiency, specifically on your Kinetic application. But you can perform different tasks, such as starting and stopping the site, starting and stopping task agents, refreshing your databases, doing a full data model regen. So again, if you're doing any testing or doing any, personalizations of the solution and you need to test that data, you can hop into the cloud management portal and just do a full data regen. Um, I will say too, they are very close to offering self-paced upgrades too. And that all can be done here through the cloud management portal that Epicor makes available to its customers. And an additional offering through the cloud here from a support standpoint is pro support. I do want to illustrate that Epicor's kind of standard support is pretty solid, is pretty fantastic, but every once in a while there may be a need for some additional or an extended level support, and that is certainly available through our pro support program. Some of the major differences would be just response times are severely decreased. The hours of availability are certainly expanded, and there is prioritizing the queue. So those would go to those queue requests would go to senior level support. So again, there's some major benefits there. If that is a need for your organization there. All right. I think that concludes our webcast today specific to Epicor Cloud. And I know, Ashley, you wanted to wrap here with